Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Scumdogs Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and I have another great show planned for us. Tonight, we're going to be looking at elemental beings and having some fun. Now, folks, and, I'm going to show off my artwork from my own upcoming graphic novel, Scumdogs, now, so let's have some fun while we wait for people to gather. All right, here's my extreme 90s cover. This cover I did to harken back to the comic books of the 90s. It looks pretty good, huh? This cover has pretty much all of my characters that'll be appearing in my graphic novel, Scumdogs. Let's see, the Scumdogs are villains out to take over the world. The Scumdogs, my graphic novel, is a parody of cartoons we all know and love when we were growing up. This comic book will harken you back to those days. Well, or basically you'll just have a lot of fun reading it. Now, the Scumdogs, in the future they were former pro athletes and now they're turned into supervillains out to take over the world. See, in the future there's such known as the Scumdog Sports. It's sporting events held with superhuman monsters as the pro athletes, or rather as the athletes. See, they're called scum and dogs because they trade in their humanity for superpowers. Scum and dogs because they trade their humanity for superpowers. Now, so you get the idea they're not exactly nice guys. But what happens when they get banned from sports? Well, the Scumdogs then decide to take over the world. They're led by Deathmug, the purple guy with the metal mask over here, who's fighting his archenemy Buick Starpoon, the guy with the pink pompadour hair. Deathmug is an overblown, arrogant dictator who wants to rule the world. He has various aspects of villains from 80s cartoons, while his archenemy Buick Starpoon is a classic parody of the hardcore military guy who always thinks he's right. He's got an overblown ego, and both of them can't stand each other. But Buick Starpoon is also the parody of the space opera hero kind of character, like Buzz Lightyear or Zap Brannigan, or Captain Kirk and stuff, or Buck Rogers as well. You get it right there. But because of him and his team are also G.I. Joe parodies, he's also got a military specialty. He's also a parody of Duke from G.I. Joe. In fact, all of his team in the Space Forces are G.I. Joe parodies. Over here, this guy with the mohawk, his name is Roadhog. His military specialty is that he's an army guy. Then he joined up with Buick Starpoon. Right? Then there's this bald guy with a gun down here. There's this bald guy with a gun down here. His name is Beach Pounder. His military specialty is that he's a Marine, just another Marine. While this guy back here in the red uniform driving that vehicle, shooting off his missiles, his name is Blast Tank. His military specialty is that he's a heavy vehicle specialist, a tanker. Now, this cover is one of 3 different variant covers you'll be able to back when my Indiegogo goes live. Okay, let's see. All right. Do this. Let's look at some more characters here. All right. Let's see. Here we have Girl Friday. Girl Friday is another member of the Wild Rangers. That's the name of Buick Starpoon's team in the Space Forces. She was assigned to the Wild Rangers because while the Wild Rangers fight the Scumdogs and save the world, they're just highly destructive idiots. Or maybe just highly destructive morons. See, they can't save anything without destroying everything else around it. So they assign Girl Friday to the team to basically babysit them, and she hates her job. She hates Buick Starpoon because she thinks her career in the military is over. By the way, hit that like button. Well, yeah. By the way, folks, come and read about her in my graphic novel Scumdogs. It's not on Indiegogo yet because I'm still making the book, but when it is, come and read it. Yeah, come and back it. You'll enjoy this book. You'll enjoy Scumdogs. Here we have Deathmug's henchmen, because you know him all. Yeah, no. Because you know in all. Let me do this. Because you know in all 80s cartoons, the main villain, or we're in the 80s cartoon, the main villain of the cartoon would have henchmen, and they'd be total idiots. These are my idiots. The pink guy down here is Sloppy, and the blue guy up here with the top hat is Murder Mouth. There are a couple of idiots that can't possibly do anything right, and they destroy everything they touch. You're going to love them when you read about them. And here we have Hair Metal Doctor. Hair Metal Doctor is a parody of Dr. Mindbender from G.I. Joe, Mad Scientist. But my Mad Scientist is crossed over with a Hair Metal Rocker, because I thought that'd be awesome. He thinks of all the mad gadgets and machines the scumdogs use to try and take over the world. Then we have Miss Breasty Melons here. Miss Breasty Melons here is a parody of the Baroness from G.I. Joe. But unlike the Baroness, she only became a villain for fun, so you're going to enjoy her. Now, the Hair Metal Doctor pinup and the Miss Breasty Melons pinup, you'll be able to get in my graphic novel, along with other pictures as well. So feel free to back it when it's up on Indiegogo, folks. All right. Anything else? Should I do that? Now, the Hair Metal Doctor pinup and the Miss Breasty Melons pinup will also be available from T-shirts from Crypto Fashion as soon as I'm able to make them. So feel free to back those as well when I have them, when they're ready. Now, Scumdogs is coming. I'm still making the book, but it'll be up on Indiegogo, and you'll be able to back it, and you'll enjoy it. Now, let's exit out of this. Dustin, how's it going? I'm doing pretty well, Dustin. I have stuff in the works. I'm working on my graphic novel. I'm having some fun. I'm also going to be looking at Elemental Beings tonight and having some fun looking at those. Now, let's go look at maybe some Indiegogos before we do anything else. Night Stars, Volume 1, hardcover, made $1,372 already. Not too bad there. Let's go over here. We have the Relentless Tin Soldier for $545. Sal Shantry, Book 2, Belly of the Beast. Not bad. 30 days left. 7,113 already. Not bad there. So let's go down here. Space Bastards edition hardcovers, 24,869. Not bad there either. We have Elvira meets Vincent Price, 13,353. 14 days left. That's doing well. That's doing very well. Maybe go down here. Dame Gang has made quite a bit of money. Oh, Alien Alamo has made 86,196. Let me go over here. Let's see. All right. So yeah, a bunch of books up in Indiegogo are doing well. So go back to the Comicsgate books. Yeah, go back Comicsgate on Indiegogo. Yeah, go back Comicsgate comics on Indiegogo, folks. These books are well worth your time. All right. All right. Looking definitely good. Yeah. Now we're going to be looking at Elemental Beings. So maybe I'll go back to over here to Encounters with Mysterious Entities in Haunted Cornfields. Pretty much, we're going to be finishing off this article first, or maybe reading a bit into it, because more or less these things are probably elementals as well. At least I think they are. So let's get into this. We read a bit of the beginning of this. We're going to go over this a bit. So for let's look at an area of haunted phenomena that is truly creepy. One of the eerie places one can find across something from beyond understanding is out in a cornfield. Here we have rows upon rows of these stalks slowly swaying in the wind, holding who knows what within the pockets of shadow between them. The ears seem to be places destined for creepy tales of the strange. I read the beginning of this article yesterday, but I'm just going to go through it as quick as possible to get through the part I haven't read yet. The ears seems to be places destined for creepy tales of the strange, and there are indeed many such stories making the rounds out there. So let's go right in and push those corn stalks aside, venture into the murk within, and see what we find. There's all manner of strange things materializing from between the stalks, and most of these, well, strange reports of things materializing from between the stalks, and in most of these, the entity seems to be rather menacing and sinister. Variety, talking the reports from Reddit, who says, well, a Reddit user from Reddit, who says this happened one evening as he drove along US 40 about 25 miles west of Indianapolis at around midnight. Anyone who drives that way knows that route is just miles and miles of cornfield. And since it was a very routine drive and a summer drive, I was spending more time looking out the window for deer than anything else and searching. Oh, by the way, folks, hit that like button for me. Helps me fight the algorithm, as well as please go hit that bell and hit the part of the bell that gives you all feature notifications for my videos, as well as please go share this video out on Twitter and Facebook. Since it was a routine, in a summer drive, I was spending more time looking out the window for deer than anything else. Just a moment, folks. I need to do something. Got that just about there. Let's see, anything else for deer? I cut some eye shine and slowed down to about 35 miles per hour, but I noticed that the shine I saw was a more orangey, fiery glow color than normal for a deer. As I got within about 30 yards, I could see it wasn't a deer producing the eye shine, but a strange gray mass sitting on the edge of the cornfield just before a tree line. When I got about 20 yards, I stood up. I was still confused as to what exactly I was looking at until it stood all the way up. It was only about 8 feet outside of my passenger window. Looked like a gray emaciated man dressed like he was in Great Depression era suit with a brown fedora, with fire instead of eyes and nothing for a face. He looked to be about 8 feet tall and just felt like he was staring into my skull. And as he started to pass behind me, I watched him turn and casually step back into the cornfield and vanish. One wonders just what that otherworldly thing could have possibly been. From the state of Illinois comes the account of a witness who says that her own encounter happened while driving her husband along a dark and lonely rural road in central Illinois that passed right through the expansive cornfields on both sides. It was described as a clear summer evening, and on the stalks blurred by them, a hypnotic cycle, something would give them quite a jolt, she says. Something ran across the road in front of me. It was about the size of a toddler, but looked like a skeleton. So skinny. Well, a skeleton looked like a skeleton. So skinny, its limbs were about the size of a skeleton. It was also bone white and very fast. I have been through college. I have Bachelor of Science and have been taking biology classes as well. Zoology, that creature was something I've never seen before. My husband looked ahead just as he left the road and said he just saw something but couldn't describe it. There are other accounts of thin, pale entities lurking about cornfields as well. Very creepy encounter was reported on ThoughtCo and is told by a witness named Frank Simcoe, who says he once worked in a rural cheese factory in the state of Minnesota that stood right up against the vast sea of corn in the summer of 2004. He said that he was on break on a night shift looking over the forlorn cornfield and watching bats flirt about when something very unearthly caught his eye. He says of the surreal sequence of events that would follow. As I was watching the bats, I looked down the edge of the cornfield. Something was moving there. It was the size of a small child, very, very skinny, pale, with that looked like a head of straight black hair. It moved in a sort of jerky gait, like someone dancing at the robot badly. It moved in chunks, legs, then hips, then torso, shoulders, neck, and finally head. It was looking back into the cornfield, or at least I felt like it was. I felt prickly all over, and I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a heron or something, but I looked too much like a person. It didn't move like a person, though gradually, step by step, it moved towards me. Letting my curiosity bear my fear, I moved toward the edge of the dock, which was raised a few feet off the ground. I got within a few feet of the edge. The thing then looked at me. Edge. Well, the guy was paralyzed. I could have run, but I was stuck somewhere between terrified and intrigued. It moved its face still, pointed at me, rested its body in that disconcerting jerky movement towards the cornfield and went into it. I tried to watch where the field moved as it passed, but the corn remained perfectly still. I noticed that all the crickets were silent. After a few minutes, nothing happened. It stood out there for an hour, but it never came back. I never saw it again. This like these sound like tales of ultra-terrestrials, elemental beings and stuff. So we're starting out with this one. Where are these pale creatures? Ghosts, demons, something else? One case that certainly seems rather demonic in nature is the report from a witness named Jennifer on the True Ghost Tale. Says that she had her frightening experience in Indiana, where she lived in a modest house on top of a large hill, behind which sat across acres of cornfield and woods stretching out all around. It would have been an inherently spooky place as it was, but it was about to get even more so. One evening, she had taken a walk out the cornfields and woods nearby. If you're wondering, folks, I'm rereading the beginning of this article because it basically, I think this article about mysterious haunted cornfields is more or less about elementals. So we're going to be reading this and reading the whole article as well as other elemental stories, folks. So sit back and enjoy. Which sat across acres of cornfield woods stretching all around. It would have been an inherently spooky place as it was, but it was about to get even more so. One evening, she had taken a walk out in the cornfields. I'm getting back to the article here. Nearby, she describes it as mostly a peaceful hike. That is, until she was heading back, she says of the horrifying sequence of events that would play out. I was walking back. I caught a fast flash of something all black move behind a tree in the woods. I stopped and looked. At first I didn't see anything, so I began walking again. But after a few steps, I seen it again, and this time didn't hide. What I saw that day was not only unexplainable, it was pure evil in form. Stood there looking at me, its head and neck hung to the side in every normal way, as if it was broken. It stood about 4 feet tall, and its arms were very long and hung it all the way to the ground. It looked as if its entire body was burned or very thick like skin. It had no hair or ears on its head. Then I noticed that steam was rolling off this thing like crazy. And then it let out this loud scream that scared me so badly I began to run full speed through the field towards the house. I felt as if my heart was going to beat out of my chest, and I could hear the leaves crunching as the thing was definitely coming after me. I had about a million things going through my mind at this. Well, I had about a million things going through my mind at this point. I was wondering what would happen to me. Had a million things going through my mind at this point, and I was wondering what would happen to me. If this thing does catch up with me, I gave a quick glance back, and I seen it closer than it had been and gained speed as it was using its long arm. As it was using its long arms to help it run kind of like a gorilla would. All this time, it's also letting out this gurgling sort of scream that I can't really explain. Finally, I reached the house and began to tell my mother what had happened, and I haven't even finished when we both heard something pounding on the outside of the house. We both began to scream and cry, and it sounded as if it was going to beat the whole walls down. After an hour of tormenting us, this thing just stopped, and when my dad got home, my mom and I told him what happened. I was sure he would never believe us, but to my complete surprise, he went and got some other people in this hunting rifle and went looking for the creature. Of course, they never caught it, and after a year went by, my dad and I was outside one night talking. It came up in our conversation. He told me that the reason he knew we were telling the truth was because 2 nights before that he was burning some leaves out back, and he saw it standing in the middle of the field and heard it screaming like a banshee. Also rather spooky is a Reddit user called Emily here, who says she had a friend who lived out in a house skirted by miles of cornfields. Well, had a friend who lived in a house skirted by miles of cornfields. Interestingly, the field had always been afraid of the fields, as she believes them to be prowled by malevolent entities. She had actually seen it on several occasions. The witness here had never actually really believed these tales until one night as they were out driving. She says, "My friend has always had a fear of cornfields, and no matter how many times I asked her, she refuses to tell me why. Her husband did tell me that it's because of something called corn demons. This particular night, she wanted to visit her mom's. On this particular night, she wanted to visit her mom since we were going to be nearby. Her mom still lives in the same house that my friend grew up in, which is in a heavily wooded area by a lake out in the country. As we were leaving, she turned and we started driving past a cornfield. I was about to comment how high the corn was when my friend suddenly smacked my leg. 'Do not look in the corn.' Sounded very serious, but despite myself, I glanced over. There were a pair of red eyes in the corn, and since she was driving fast, it was only for a split second. I had to stop myself from saying anything, but I had a feeling she knew anyway. She just because of how fast she drove to get past the field and how she remained silent up till we were good a mile or two ahead. I know what I saw, but at the same time, I have no idea what it could have been. Here we are in the new stuff we haven't read before. There are other reports that seem to follow more along the lines of traditional ghosts and perhaps deal with a lost soul internally wandering around the rows of corn. One report comes from a Redditor claiming that this is an experience that her husband had while out fishing with his three friends. She explains with a strange account. So one day he was meeting with his friends to go fishing on the river. His three friends were already down by the water, and he got there to stop later with his dog. The river in town is separated by a cornfield, so that just had to park their cars. Okay, what do you think about this, folks? All these stories. I think there are elemental beings, but they could also be demons or ghosts as well. Could very well be, maybe even aliens. Either way, this sounds very weird. So feel free to leave me a few chats because I want to hear your opinion on what we're talking about. We're talking about elemental beings, and I felt that these creatures are them. River and town is separated by a cornfield, so they just had to park their cars by the road and walk through the field. And when they were at the riverbank, now this happened in 2006 when our town had a bad flood. This was also late summer, so the corn was high. Half of the field had been flooded, so the part of the road by the road was still standing. But when you got further out, it had been leveled by the flood. Anyway, he said he had an awful feeling while he was working through the corn, and his dog kept barking. This dog is extremely well behaved, but wouldn't stop even after my husband told him to. He said he felt really uneasy, but brushed it off because it was about a short walk, and then he emerged from the corn and walked the rest of the way to his friends. When he got down to the river, he said that they asked who was it that was walking with him. He said no one, and asked what they were talking about. Well, I guess their faces turned white, and explained that a man walked out of the cornfield with him and then just turned around and walked back. He said he was sure they were serious and felt certain that a ghost was walking with him, and that's why he got the feeling that and his dog was acting strange. And another very paranormal account. One poster tells of how he had been driving through central Illinois. One guy tells of how he had been driving through central Illinois. Interesting. Very interesting. Feel free to hit that like button for me, folks. Okay. One guy tells of how he had been driving through Central with some others on their way to Chicago. They had been driving along a remote stretch of highway that passes through rows after rows of cornfields. As far as the eye could see, where the witness noticed something decidedly odd, he says. Interesting. Very, very interesting. So this guy basically just traveled there and had witnessed a bunch of stuff happening. So there. And there now, let's get into his art, what he has to say about this. It was really late and everything was asleep in the van except my friend's mom and I. I was sitting on the right side in the back when we passed by what looked like two teenagers coming out of the cornfield, the right side of the road. Now, normally this isn't weird. Plenty of kids end up wandering through cornfields at some point in Illinois. What was weird was what they were and how they looked. I will never forget the boy. He was probably 15, 16 years old, wearing a white linen shirt, brown shirt, and with suspenders. His hair was short but curly and brown. He was handsome and pale with dark circles under his eyes, and I mean like Gerald way looking eyes. He looked like he had blood on him, and the girl he was with looked bad. She was wearing a blood-covered dress, and she was also pale with dark rings in her eyes. Now, where we were was really strange. The cornfield was huge, and there weren't any entrances off of I-55 that we could see. My friend's mom immediately freaked out, thinking that they drove their car into the cornfield and must have been super hurt. We were driving pretty fast, and she had a van full of kids, so instead of pulling over, she grabbed her Nokia and called 911. I remember that she reported the mile marker and told the police they looked like they needed help, and that was it. I never figured what happened. I honestly think they were ghosts. Their movements were so strange, and their placement was just odd. There's no way teenagers would be hanging out on the side of I-55 dressed like that around midnight. Interesting. In other cases, the cornfield itself seems to be imbued with some sort of supernatural energy. And our next report comes from the country of Ireland concerning what seems to be a fairy-infested cornfield. User Billy Cornelis Fairies aren't like the Tinkerbell or whatever they are. Powerful magical beings apparently don't F with fairies. In Irish farms, you will occasionally come across a tree or hedge in the middle of the field, and they can often get in the way of harvest or whatever. But they are never cut down, as they are seen as belonging to the fairies. Same with fairy forts, circular patterns of mushrooms, or ancient ring forts. The ring fort are where there used to be raised wall of encampment, and sometimes it becomes overgrown with trees. If you've wandered into one, you are supposedly going to have bad luck unless you put your jumper inside out. The other thing is something I've had some experience with. It's called Fugimeria. Not sure how to spell it, but basically you are in a field, and the fog descends and you cannot find the gate or any landscape to find your way out. What happened to me twice, once was on Halloween, the other was a few years previous to that in a different area. Apparently the links between the other world, this one gets close around Halloween. Ended up just walking in what seemed like hours to get through the fields. Most Irish farms small, which makes that even more confusing. Happened to a friend also on this farm. He took his hounds, 50 out, but spent 20 minutes circling around the field looking for the exit. Whether any of these stories are true or not, it would seem that cornfields truly are places that stir the imagination, and they are certainly missing locales right for such place things, huh? Interesting. Let's go look at some more elemental stories then. All right, because that definitely felt like it. Mysterious tales of fire elementals. Have I read this one before? Don't know. Throughout the ages, many cultures, if I have, I'll just switch over to a different article, folks. Many cultures have spoken of certain types of nature elementals, those spirits that dwell within and control certain aspects of the natural world, including air, water, earth, and fire. After all, we have a long, tired to come with grips with and explain the natural phenomenon of our world. Among the many nature elementals of lore, perhaps the most spectacular are the fire elementals. In many traditions, referred to as salamanders after the animals of the same name, which have long been associated with the element of fire. These salamanders were considered to be the personification of fire, have been around in legend and lore for centuries. And some tales have been having been the ones who taught human beings how to use fire. In other traditions, they were said to be the cause of various phenomena, such as St. Elmo's fire, is a coronal of discharge of light off of pointed objects under certain atmospheric conditions. They were also linked to various electrical phenomena, and these fire elements were often blamed for volcanic eruptions. Indeed, said to lurk within volcanoes. Lurk, huh? Ooh. The appearance of salamanders is usually described as a being roughly humanoid in form, a human face, but with the flaming slanted eyes, faces veiled by flames and flickering bodies that are charged with raging fire and streams of fiery energy. Their form is constant flux, churning and throbbing with flame. Now, folks, I might also look up a few fiery elemental alien stories, because apparently they might be connected. Well, that is if they are. Maybe they probably are. That's if they are. They have long been considered to be the strongest and fiercest of the elementals, connected with the direction of south, and sometimes associated with similar spirits as the spirits of other places in the book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly. They are described as great detail as follows. Medieval investigators of nature spirits were of the opinion that most common forms of salamanders was lizard-like in shape, foot of more in length, and visible as a glowing, twisting, crawling in the midst of the fire. Another group was described as huge flaming giants in flowing robes, protected with sheets of fiery armor. Certain medieval authorities, among them the Ab, held that Zarathustra was the son of Zvestra, believed to have been the wife of Noah, and the great salamander Amasis, salamander, from that time onward, undying fires have been maintained upon the Persian altars in honor of Zarathustra, the flaming father, honor of him. Interesting. Zarathustra's flaming father. One most important subdivision of the salamanders was the Eths. I'm just going to let's get going here. Let's just do that. These creatures appeared only as indistinct globes. They were supposed to float over water at night and occasionally to appear as forks of flame on the masts of rigging of ships. The salamanders were the strongest and most powerful of the elementals and had as their ruler a magnificent flaming spirit called terrible and awe-inspiring in appearance. The salamanders were dangerous, and the sagas were warned to keep away from them, as the benefits derived from studying them were often not consummate with the price paid. As the ancients associated heat with the south, this corner of creation was assigned by to the salamanders as their drone, and they exerted special influence over all beings of fiery or tempestuous temperament. Both animals and others, the salamanders work through the emotional nature by means of the body, heat, the liver, and the bloodstream. Without their assistance, there would be no warmth. There. Although it must seem as though these mysterious fiery elementals would be purely destructive in nature, they were also seen as having an important connection to the themes of regeneration, renewal, and rebirth. The English therapist and visionary Jeffrey said of the aspect of the fire elementals. In color, golden yellow. All right. In color, golden yellow and flame-like, they resemble gigantic men of flame. In the hand of each a spear, and on the head a cold crown of living fire. Flames shoot forth from them on every side. Every change of consciousness sends forth a tongue of flame. Every gesture flings a flood of fire. They form an august body of solar fire angels, who each at his station with a pearl-shaped tongues of flame. Fourth, encircle the sun, though through them passes to be transformed in passing, at least its naked energy should destroy the system, which by their meditation it regenerates and transforms. They shield the solar system, lest the fiery power should blind the eyes of those to whom it is a source of light, burn those to whom it is a source of heat, and shatter those to whom it is a source of power. The purpose of the universal fire is to regenerate and to transform, to ensure continuity of growth, means of change, and to ensure that no parts of the universe should become static, resistant, and inert. The element of fire is an expression of the divine, with which exerts a ceaseless forward pressure upon all life and manifests in all forms as an inward urge towards a more perfect expression of the instilling life. Fire has the special function of maintaining universal movement. Its denizens possess the fiery quality which transforms, regenerates, and when necessary, gets rid of. This invisible element of fire is at work behind the system, as are its agents. In every rock, in every stone and jewel, plant, animal, and man, it ceaselessly exerts an influence in the direction of change. Because of its presence, nothing in nature can ever stand still. It ensures the growth of the system. Its power is wielded not only by the nature spirits who labor instinctively in the cause of change, but by the great fire angels who constantly produce all changes throughout the system, that the new birth which results may grow ever nearer and nearer to the likeness of archetype in the mind of God. And feared, ferocious as they said to be, there have been many throughout the ages who would try to summon these elementals with varying results. One of these was Hobson himself, who claimed to have met with a fire elemental in a vision which he likened to being a type of angel. Taken on a tour of the spirit's realm, Hobson would say that this journey seemed to be staying with him, submerged in a sea of fire, which was generous, all pervasive, and transparent. It seemed also to see the sunflower formation of the fire aspect, the solar logo of the solar and his system, as if the angel eye were standing on one of the petals. Like though the distance and dimension of this fire world were so colossal as to be physically hensible and beyond measure, yet at this level they were well within my grasp, and the fact that I was staying completely submerged in a veritable conjure of flame as it rushed past and swirled about me did not prevent me from seeing the whole of it, and its shape as if I were also looking down upon it from above. I could trace its source in the sun and see its limits were the tip of a petal. Touched the ring past knot or edge of the system. I was not able to discover the relation of the physical sun to the fiery sun, but the relative size and luminosity were such that the physical sun would be almost lost in its fiery counterpart. Under the angel's guidance, I moved about within this world of fire. However great distance was we covered, the same aspect always presented itself. Whether we rose or fell in the sea of fire across this wide area of flame, the system continued to appear like a sunflower presenting its full face. It was contradictory, though. The way it sounds will be intelligible to those who are familiar with the idea of the fourth dimension as the fire level. However, the apparent direction of space are characteristics revealed by superphysical cognition, or more than four. The appearance of the interesting. The appearance of the solar fire lords, for the appearance of the solar fire lords was glorious and inspiring. Their stature must be gigantic, though they did not approach the size of the main petals themselves, as they stood like an inner corolla around the central fiery heart of the flower. They were large enough to be noticeable from points near the outer edge of the system. When we approached the center, they were seen to be solar colossi, solar giants. And at one point on the resting place in a single fire lord completely filled the field of vision. Their forms were terrifically human, though every cell in their bodies resembled a roaring furnace, while flames leapt and played about them continuously. I was not able to see their faces, and with any distinctive, and their eyes were shadowed from view. Well, they were shaded from my view. They were shaded, huh? Perhaps by merciful providence, but I received the impression of beauty quite as strongly as I received that of power. Their beauty was not so much that of a shape and form, though their bodies are, beautiful. One prominent tale of contact with fire elementals was relayed by occultist William Mistill, William here was supposedly able to make psychic contact with an Atlantean magician, William, by the name of Heard Ardera, who claimed to have summoned a great fire spirit called Pyrum, whom Mr. would say of this bizarre encounter. William, huh? Almost without effort, the guy Pyrum shifted between his world and that of Hedorah's. Hedorah's voice and the energy field he had created had already, let's see. Hedorah's voice, and the energy field he had created had already opened the gate. Pyrum only needed to step into the space of blazing red light to receive it. Hedorah face to face in turn. Hedorah perceived Hedorah perceived Pyrum coming toward him in the magic mirror, which was at the end of his room. A moment later, Pyrum stepped out of the mirror and into the room. The Salamar's body appearing physically in our world by virtue of the energy medium of fire Hedorah had created. Hedorah perceived in front of him by being like a man in appearance, but the air around him was blurred as if heat were destroying the image of his body, or as if his aura was pulsating from within its internal light. Pyrum's eyes were like doorways through which he could see the fires burning inside the earth. And Pyrum's voice, when he spoke, was grating and impatient, like the voice of a commander who has just taken a city. He has laid siege for months, and there was a resonance in his voice, something altogether subterranean, plutonic, like the deep and dim rumbling of the earth's mantle as it spits and rubs against the edge of a continent. It was said that any sorcerer or magician who summoned a fire elemental required great purity of soul and profound grasp of fire magic to even hope to control the spirit or even survive the ordeal. Mr. would explain his ordeal with a measure that had come apparently from Pyrum himself, which says, "Less than a handful of mortals have ever walked by my side and survived, and only one or two were willing to, like you, to enter the domain where I reign. Without having to disguise their fear and trembling, I oversee all fire on earth, and I care not much for your race. I am not arrogant. I just have no respect for human beings because they have not sought to discover the power hidden in their hearts. I think power is external to the self, that is found in the ability to bend matter or subject other than living beings to their will." Those who search into the domain are enamored with faith. They want something for nothing without offering anything in exchange. They attempt to enchant me by pronouncing fearsome and terrible names of gods, goddesses, and deities from various religions. What nonsense. Do they think they can badger me? I can command a sea of magma to stretch out its hand in a strand rising to 2,000 miles until it punctures the surface of the world and forms mountains 3 miles tall. These magicians cannot even command their own body to pump blood, part of their heart muscle, which is suffocating because an artery is clogged. Do they expect me down on my knees and obey their command? Vainly imagine they are united with God as they babble on raising their voices higher till it breaks into a shriek. They think of by speaking the words of a god or by pronouncing his name that somehow their voices is magically transformed into his voice or their authority into his own. Magicians are often entertained than jesters, clowns. Their great bards will not speak of me in a song, lest they risk being drowned in an abyss without entrance or exit. And so even at night when your face falls asleep, I am unable to appear in your dreams. Even the tongue and flame with which dragons speak your fairy tales and myths neither hint at nor revealed a trace of my existence. I dwell within a realm well hidden beyond human reach or belief. Whether such entities really exist or not, they have, interesting, huh? Whether such entities really exist or not, they are just cool to read about here, aren't they? That is one hell of a great article I just read. Okay, we have something here that was, we have something here that was very interesting. Let's go look at some more elementals, such things. Let's see. Let's see this. Shasta. Let's go over here. It's death from. Let's see. Go look at the lurking shadow people, but maybe I should go over here. Look at some more stories. See this. When creatures change form. Encounters, the wolf horror. Could look at this. Let me try this. Super little shape-shifting manipulation. I've been wanting to read this article. Let's see. There's also supposed to be elemental creatures. Today's article is a strange one. It's a story that may not be aware of, but there's no doubting the fact that it makes for intriguing reading. It revolves around a mysterious phenomenon. It has origins in Italy centuries ago. No less. On top of that, the story has a connection to shape-shifting magical beings, in other words, that have been tamed, the little people. That's quite a few strands, is to say the least. Let's put these strands together. Welcome to the domain of the Donusts. Their specific place of origin, Sicily, which is an island in the Mediterranean Sea and a region of Italy, very much like the magical and manipulative elementals of England, Scotland, Ireland, and Wales. The Donusts de Ferona were small human entities that is somewhat of a fraught relationship with the local human population of Sicily. Although there were both male and female beings, certainly it was the latter who were the most visible when it came to the issue of interacting with people of Sicily. While they were described as both beautiful and enchanting, the Donusts de Ferona were not to be messed with, not at all. They certainly had their friendly sides to their characters, but if and when offended, their wrath ranged from cruel and dangerous to downright deadly. Interesting, the Donusts de Ferona looked human, in part from their height, aside from their strange feet, which were described as being circular, paw-like. The latter description is most apt, since the Donusts de Ferona were said to have the ability to turn themselves into cats, or of the regular kind, and also of a black variety of mountain lion size. There's no doubt that these large black cats. Here we have another story with large, mysterious black cats, with elemental beings as well, folks. so-called alien big cats, or ABCs, UK's large unidentified, that have roamed the land for centuries. Of course, there's suggests that the ABCs of the UK might very well be shapeshifters too. That, however, is a story for another day and another article. Now let's learn more about these, enticing body-morphing creatures of the magical variety and stuff. It said that the donos said that they would make contact with humans, mostly women, who possess sweet blood, and would take them on the Italian mainland by flying them there to sound very much like sound very much like other creatures of the night as well, with them taking out sweet blood, them on magic coats there. They would reportedly engage in orgies, various acts of celebration, such as feasting and dancing. The king and queen of the Donos de Ferro were said to hold court in Bernavitan as well, and the humans taken there were apparently made to swear allegiance to them and to denounce their belief in God and the Virgin Mary. We are also told historical Sicilian folklore, Donos de Ferro would make contact with humans. Whom they took to Benevento, the buckle of Sicily. The fairies were called Donos de, which was also the name of the women who were associated with them. They were described as beauties dressed in white, red, or black. They could be male or female, and their feet were the paws of cats, horses, or of a peculiar round shape. They came in groups of 5 or 7, and a male fairy played the lute on the guitar while dancing. The fairies and the humans were divided into companies in different sizes, different ones for noble and non-noble humans, under the lead of an ensign every Thursday, Saturday. The fairies met the humans belonging to their company in the woods. In March, several companies gathered, and their prince instructed them to be benevolent creatures. A congregation called the Seven Fairies, could transform themselves to cats, and something called, something or other, so I don't know about that. And they could turn themselves into something else as well. And there are the following words from some guy that could easily be offended by humans. In one story, a man who was not associated with the fairies and was unable to see them developed a painful cramp after hitting one of the fairies who was listening to him play music. Another story involves several people who had disturbed the fairies while they had nocturnally traveled from house to house, eating and drinking as they routinely embraced the town's infants. On those occasions, the person in question paid one of the people associated with the fairies to be the host of a dinner at their home, meaning the fairies, while the owners of the house slept. The phenomenon of the Donos of the fairies, of these guys, is still well known to the people of Sicily, as you might well guess. Old beliefs are still adhered to by those who know of the old tales, and that somewhat uneasy the relationship between humans and these magical little creatures. Okay, look at that. These elemental creatures are very strange. Let's go look at this. Spirits of the trees, taking a look at ancient beliefs. Good look at this. Have I read this one before? We're at 8 minutes in. We're looking at elemental creatures tonight, folks. Maybe I should look at on the many varied kinds of fairies, elementals that were said to possess awesome powers, shape-shifting. Certainly, one of the most mysterious was the Dryad. It was definitely an entity of magical proportions that took shape-shifting to a truly unique level. As we shall now see, the Dryad was a supernatural entity that features heavily in ancient Greek mythology. They did, in which was exclusively associated with forests and woods and trees. There was a very good reason for that. Of this strange magical creature, Dryad, also called Hamadryad in Greek mythology, a nymph of nature, spirit who lives in trees and takes the form of a beautiful young woman. Dryads were originally spirits of oaks. Of oaks, but the name was later applied to all tree nymphs. It was believed that they lived only as long as the trees they inhabited. In essence, the Dryads were what we today consider, the Dryads were considered to be nature spirits. Nymphs, that one might be justified in saying, within the teaching of ancient Greece, the Dryads were seen as the guardians of the protectors of trees and of the woods. There was a related belief that they were the trees, and that each and every tree had its own spirit, one that could appear in the form of the tree itself or to sprite-like fairy beings. Different trees were possessed by or could shapeshift into different elementals, and vice versa. For example, according to the Greeks, ash trees were the remains of something. most well known within Greek mythology as the protectors and guardians of the mighty Greek god Zeus during the very earliest of his, well, when he was, was his protector and stuff. Mulberry bushes were called by a subgroup of dryads. Mulberry bushes were basically overseen by a subgroup of dryads known as the Moria. The Skyke did it likewise for fig trees, and did the Bolinus of the oak and Polita of the elm trees. There was a very good reason why so much care and dedication went into protecting the trees. Should a tree die, then the elemental within it, or depending on one's belief system, that could shapeshift in the tree would die too, just like the Silky of Scotland. Just like other creatures and stuff we've talked about. Let's see. The dryads possess the magical ability to transform themselves into beautiful women and handsome men, with the female entity being the most often reported. Theo, Greek mythology, gives some, here we get Theo, Greek mythology, some intriguing information that demonstrate that there was more than one such type of entity. The Mele was a nymphs of the ash trees. The Urins were nymphs of the mountain conifers, and the Denfer were nymphs of the laurel trees. One of the class of rarer tree-specific dryad, or others included the Nymphae algae, or black poplars, grapevines, Bolinus of the Excarea and the hazelnut, Carina of the cherry trees, Mara of the mulberry petal or elm trees, and Syc of the fig trees. Interesting. Carinae. Interesting. That included the Nymphae. Okay. Interesting. Mythology, other websites have data to the magical tales. Dryads are considered minor. WizKids Entertainment. Dang, you're up late. Thank you, WizKids Entertainment. I'm looking at elemental spirits. Feel free to leave a few more chats while you have the time. Dryads are considered minor and mortal goddesses who have exceptionally long lifespans, but are deeply and supernaturally connected to the trees they call home, limited to the space of the tree or the forest that the tree grows in. The tree dies, then the dryad could die along with it, which is a tragic vulnerability that is acknowledged by the gods. Mortal causes the death, then the mortal is usually punished unless he or she attempts to make peace or appease the dryad. The dryads are meticulously and fiercely protect their trees as well. Yeah. And mortals would do well not to act foolishly around any tree inhabited or protected by them, huh? Interesting. Very interesting. Indeed, we should be very protective of our trees, whether you believe in the old legends or something. All right. Let's look at some other elemental stories while we have the time. We got people watching. Feel free to hit that like button, folks. It helps me fight the algorithm, as well as, if you have not done so yet, as well as please go and share this video. Hit that and also hit that bell and hit the parts of the bell that gives you all future notifications for my videos. And please go share this video on social media. Share it on Twitter and share it on Facebook. Here's another chat. I'm sorry, I will be passing out soon on Beat. Don't worry, I only have a few minutes left anyway. I'm going to stop this in a little bit. From fairies to aliens and a contactee. All right, should I look at that one? From creatures change form. Let's see. Maybe look at, let's see about this. I probably won't finish. Let's see if we, let's see. Born in Trenton, New Jersey, in the 1800s, and developed a deep interest in the world of the paranormal at a young age. It was an interest that he never lost, and indeed it stayed up with him until his death in 1965. As well as being a respected anthropologist, Evan Wentz was someone who was also fascinated by Buddhist teachings. Evan Wentz was a prestigious writer and publisher, having published in 1927 an English version of the widely acclaimed and still extensively read Tibetan Book of the Dead. For his own books, they were as notable as they were varied, most revered being Fairy Faith in Celtic Countries. It's a book which is out there with fascinating accounts of old supernatural encounters between the people of Ireland, Wales, Isle of Man in Brittany, in magical entities that have variously been referred to as elementals, fairies, goblins, sprites, and the spirits, and the wee folk. One story collected by Evans Wentz stands out. The story was personally shared with Evan Wentz by a colleague at College at Oxford University, which Evan Wentz studied as a young man. The story told to Evan Wentz was as bizarre as it was undeniably sensational. The man in question was Iris, and a former resident of County Kerry, one who had chosen Oxford University as his place of education. According to the curious story told to Evan Wentz, it was in the first week of December 1910 that the man and a friend were heading home from a night out in the Irish city, Limerick, given that it was a fair distance away and darkness was already on the land. When they went out, never mind during their return, they chose to travel on horseback, something which could make the journey to Limerick and home again an easy one. It turned out, however, that fate had other things in store for the two 23-year-olds, very strange and unforgettable things. Interesting. It was as they approached the Lustle in 15th century market town and found that the pair could fail to see a powerful, brilliant light at the distance. At half a mile from them, suddenly the light appeared from a journey. I think I already read this article before. Yeah, they encounter, and this one's been said that it could be a fairy story, or it could very well be an alien tale. Yeah, fairies and aliens and a contactee. Could very well be, very well. It could very well that they saw an elemental or something like that. It does sound like it doesn't it, folks? But I think I read that before, and I'm getting very close to ending this live stream, so maybe just leave it there, or maybe look at something a little bit more. Let's maybe go over here. Profiling the ape man of the North. The Kinks Dave Darrows had a UFO and alien encounters. The Kinks. Bizarre encounters that finished the wolf for. Imaginary of mysterious beasts reviewed. What happened to hell? The disciplines of Australia's Sasquatch strangeness. Operation Trojan Horse. The Mountain Mysterious Harlequin, Part 2. Interesting. Very interesting. The Kinks. Dave had a UFO and alien encounters. Aliens, cryptid, changing identities. Measure of mysterious beasts reviewed. Might as well look for a few, maybe just read a bit of this just for a second. Available now is a book from cryptozoologist Ken Gerhardt titled Over the Years. Ken has written a number of books, including Big Birdie, Encounters with Fairy Flying Humanoids. They're all very good, but I have to say that in my opinion, Ken's latest release is best so far. There's an excellent study of numerous different cryptids, such as things that have become known as a book. Okay, that's good. Yeah. These guys could also be elementals as well, these creatures and stuff. Yeah. What people see at night and stuff, they could be as well. I'm going to end my live stream around now. I'm going to thank you all for joining me. We looked at elementals and having some fun. Please go and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Read comics, they're bad for you, okay? Remember, the there is misspelled. Make sure you're still subscribed. Hit that like button because it helps me fight the algorithm. As well as please go and share this video out on Twitter and Facebook. As well as please go and hit that bell and hit the part of the bell that gives you all future notifications. Yeah, there's that. Also, please, let's see. Yeah, please go and subscribe to Stitch Together Picks. Stitch Together Picks is hosted by the Maniacal Cinephile. You're going to love his reviews of movies. They are great. They are just good. Please go and subscribe to Creepy Little Book. Creepy Little Book is like, well, maybe I should say this first. Please go over to rumble.com and subscribe to my Rumble channel. Let's see. The name of my Rumble channel is Comic Freak. As well as go over to BitChute.com and subscribe to my BitChute channel. The name of my BitChute channel is Comic Freak. Also, please go and subscribe to Creepy Little Book. Creepy Little Book is a YouTube channel. It's like the Art Bell radio show. He does little videos talking about high strangeness, but he also does live streams every night. On weekdays, he live streams at 12:30 a.m., and on weekends, he live streams at 10 o'clock p.m. Go and subscribe to him. Well, just go, yeah. He does live streams about aliens and ghosting and learn so much about them. They are great. You learn so much. Go and subscribe to Creepy Little Book. All right, let's see other stuff. Yeah. Also, Please go. Remember, I'll be back again tomorrow around 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock p.m. or maybe 10 o'clock or 11 or 10 o'clock p.m. for another live stream. So be sure to come back again then. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me tonight.